Neurodiversity in parents. One big happy family? We hope so. Anyway, what is neurodiversity? Everybody's talking a lot about it these days. Neurodiversity means that there's a view that people with autism just have a different way of being, and they should be honored for that. And then parents oftentimes look at autism as a disability or a disorder, and that can create some conflict. We sometimes throw up our hands, neurodiversity or neurodiversity. There can actually be some issues around this that we need to think about together. First of all, neurodiversity could be positive because it can create more of kind of a sense of acceptance in society. Yes, these people have autism, they're just different. It could possibly help create a sense of self-esteem that's improved in people with autism. They just realize, okay, I'm not damaged, I'm not bad, whatever, I'm just different. So that could be useful. On the downside, it could be an excuse to not give services to people with autism, to not have much empathy for their parents, and to not look at ways that they can be helped. And in many people that have autism, they do very well. Other people do not do well at all. They can't access services, they cannot enjoy their life, they're in pain. So it is important that we understand it's not just one issue. So how do we solve this when we look at neurodiversity? I think we have to look at it this way. It's kind of like when you have that big family dinner at Thanksgiving and everybody's around the table, you got your uncle, your aunt, your kids, your parents, everyone has an opinion. It doesn't necessarily mesh. And I think the way that we need to think about this is we need to respect each other's opinion, because actually we need each other. We need to be allies on this. The outside world is a big place for people with autism spectrum disorders and their families. We have to remember, we're one big, happy, dysfunctional family, and we need to behave that way. We should respect each other, listen to each other, and we will all have a great time when it comes time to get together and celebrate the lives of people with autism.
And we're back, and as promised, and you just saw her actually,
yes, the
on Autism and Beyond, we're back with Christina Adams. Hi, Christina.
Hey, Nancy and Shannon.
We're so thrilled to have you back. We were saying before that you have been a guiding light for so many of us, that you are an incredible, we consider you a friend, and you're an incredible woman, an incredible advocate in the autism community. We loved your first book, A Real Boy. We love your current book, Camel Crazy. And so we're thrilled to have you back on the show with us to talk about this new book. This book is tearing it up, and it should be. You received so many accolades with it. I understand, is it what Harvard said that it's a must-read? Tell us, because I can't remember. But it's like so many people have been raving about this book.
Well, that's very nice. I wouldn't. The Harvard Co-op bookstore has it, which I find wonderful that it's on their shelves. I'd like to contrast that with Slab City, an eccentric artist type of place out in the California desert. They also have it in their library in a trailer in the desert. So we're very accessible with Camel Crazy.
And who was it? Was it Barnes and Noble that has it in their must-read fiction section?
Must-read nonfiction.
Nonfiction,
yes,
of course, nonfiction.
I'm very glad to see it on that table. You know, every author wants to be on that table up front when you walk into the door, and I was just lucky that it was there. So, yeah, the camels are just stampeding. It's been on the Public Library of Science blog, the DNA genetics blog. It was featured on that, and that was really great to see. It's also just been selected as a Southern California Science Writers Book Club selection, and I'll do their podcast as well.
Great.
Amazing. Let's
talk a little bit about your journey. First, let's talk about A Real Boy and what that book was about.
Well, A Real Boy was, it's actually the first book, if you want to call this a set. Camel Crazy is a sequel to A Real Boy. Both of them are standalone books, but if you read them, first A Real Boy and then Camel Crazy, you get the whole picture. So as we all were before we came into the autism world, we're just minding our own business, doing our thing in life, and then you get put into the autism world if you want to help your child. And so that I had been a professional writer in my life, and so I just turned all those skills into kind of living the autism story, processing the autism story as far as being a parent of a small person with autism, and realizing what was going on in that world, which was both great and not so great. So I wanted to tell that story because at that time when A Real Boy came out, there was no book that like told the whole story. There were really good influential books that told, more about the diet piece or more about the behavioral piece, but I didn't find it was one that told that whole, emotional and interventional story. So I wrote that book, A Real Boy, A True Story of Autism, Early Intervention and Recovery. So after that book came out, which it did, we got a lot of good coverage in the Washington Post and did several printings, and people are still buying it, so that's wonderful. But then I was just minding my own business, back to doing that, because we like to do, keep our personalities and interests alive despite, dealing with autism all the time as parents. So I was at a children's book festival and met a guy with a camel, and that's what led to the new one, Camel Crazy, A Quest for Miracles in the Mysterious World of Camels.
So
I was just
go
going to
ahead,
say,
Shannon.
one of the things that I love about you as a writer is that you're a brilliant writer, and let's face it, there are lots of books about moms' journeys with autism, right? But, and it's like chapter one, and then we go through, this thing, and we get this, and they're good books, I don't mean to disparage. But with your book, it's like a car pulls up, and somebody opens the door and says, come on, I'm going to take you on a journey. And you get to go on. I read your book and I was like, I want to know this woman because I feel like I already do. And you take us on a journey where I don't feel like I'm reading something that's educating me, but it is. It's like you just have a way of taking us with you that is so beautiful. You are a wordsmith. You just dive into the book and you feel like you're on this ride together with somebody, and that you're going to end up in a place where you didn't expect to be, but that you're richer for it. And certainly that was true in A Real Boy, and certainly that is true in Camel Crazy. But then all the information that you give us on top of that journey, it just adds to the depth of how you write. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great summation. I really appreciate that because it is what I like to try to do. And, as a memoirist, when you write memoir, you are sharing your own story to illuminate what that is like for other people, either who are living similar stories or who have never going to live a story like yours, but they're nonetheless, want to find out what it's like. But then because these things are so, that we're doing, that I'm facing with, autism and that our community is, there's so much information. And in my past career, I did deal with information and translating that to audiences that didn't have time to read a big, thick thing on, an aircraft or a weapon system or whatever, a policy that I used to do when I worked at the Pentagon. But, you can distill that into little nuggets. So I guess I got that skill, and I just want to, I like to dig into information and shake it and see what the big picture is for that information. We don't need to know tiny, tiny details of everything. We need to process that and figure out what that means. So I'm doing that, for you, hopefully.
Well, it's amazing.
Yes, it is. It's very moving, and you feel like you're there alongside you in your journey. So you told us you met your first camel. What happened after that?
Well, I looked at that camel and I said, hey, well, I'm really, really bored, and my son is reading books. He's fine. He's age 7 at that time. And so I was about also to become a single mom, and that was a very precarious, scary time because, that's what you're afraid of as a mom, being alone with your child and not having the help that you need for both of you to sometimes actually just survive. So I just saw that.
Oh, we have a little Skype. There we go.
Took a look at it, and I saw a guy that had soap and lotion that he was selling from camel milk, and I said, well, what else did they do with that milk? And I probably should have never asked that, but that's what I get for being nosy. Curiosity killed the camel, as they say. So he said that it was given to premature infants in hospitals in the Middle East, and it was thought to be non-allergenic and might be close to human breast milk. And boom, that was when I had my light bulb moment, and I thought this milk might help my son's autism symptoms, and B, might also be a great dairy substitute for people like him that can't have other milks. For him, dairy from a cow, and though it didn't work either, would make him hand flap and toe walk, and he literally said it feels like there's dirt in my brain once he got good enough at speaking to say that. And so all the other milks too, those vegan milks, would all set off allergies. And so we were down to potato milk. And so I was still always wanting an animal milk because that helps build bone strength better, which now is actually borne out by a study. So boom, I have to stick my nose into that world, and I just became obsessed, and it's been a 14-year rabbit hole journey, and that has led me from America to other countries, and I've met the most amazing people in this journey, and I'm just so lucky that they wanted me to, share their culture and their value, love their healing traditions with the world. And so, yeah, let's go on a journey because, we have a lot on our plates as parents, but we still want to learn and we have value to the world ourselves. I think sometimes we forget that. I mean, I used to think I didn't matter at all. Everything was about my son and getting him better and getting him progress and getting him where he could be. And if he wasn't going to make progress, that's how it is. You just have to make them happy and successful as they can be. So I didn't matter for years. So I felt like finally, I want to at least have a life, a little bit of my own. And so that really helped, when you're trying to help others, and if you can find something in that for yourself too, and to still create a community that you can be part of and other people can be part of. That's what I feel like I've done with these 2 books, and I'm really appreciative that I've been welcomed by a lot of people.
It makes me emotional because to hear you say that you didn't feel like you mattered, and yet your book changed my life. And forever, it changed my life. The first one and the second one as well. I just think it's a lesson for all of us about, that you are somebody who follows your passions and follows your instincts. And I learn from that all the time, quite frankly, Christina, that, because I don't think there are very many moms who would have been at the bookstore and been like, been at the book fair and been like, oh, there's a camel, so I guess I'm going to dive. Like, we might have Googled it.
Right.
But the rest of us would not end up, in a tent with
Bedouins, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I did Google it. There was 0. So, leave it to me to have to create my own, support my own scientific theory. So whatever, it just happens, but
You're an
if you find
adventurous
something-
soul, though.
Well,
Yeah. Tell us what actually happened once you discovered the camel milk with your son and with others on the spectrum. What effect did the camel milk have?
well, it had, for my son, he was sort of, I like to say he's almost like patient 0 in some ways. Now, I did have that idea. I went home, there was nothing on the internet about autism or anything, just weird articles about making cheese and how hard it was and stuff. And so I didn't give up, though. So I kept researching, and then a few months later, I found that there was an article by Dr. Ruben Yagil and another doctor, medical science professional, and they had given camel milk to some kids with autism in Israel, and they got better. So it was kind of a short-term article, but that just showed me I was on the right path. So that's when I had to kind of smuggle it in with, medical support from Bedouins in the Israel-Palestine area of the Middle East. And I gave it to my son, and he got incredibly better overnight, like shocking, on 4 ounces of camel milk. So after that, it just threw me, into this whole investigation mode, which I went into before I gave it to him. So I'd done my due diligence as far as science went, kind of made the theory on why it might help. It worked beyond my wildest dreams. So after that, I just kind of became a camel milk investigator. But in 2012, I wrote an article called Got Camel Milk, and it went viral, and it just really helped kick off the whole movement and industry around the world. So in 2013, I wrote a science article, which I've talked about before on Autism-live. That's now been cited maybe about 13 times. So that kind of got a lot of citations, as we know now. And now thousands and thousands and thousands of kids and adults with various medical conditions are using camel milk. And so it's amazing. It's global around the world. In America, the thing where my son is kind of patient 0, I did get milk in America when they started milking camels around 2011. And I gave it to him, and he showed the same response as he did from the Middle Eastern camel milk. So that showed, like, he was probably the first person to do that with autism. It showed that it wasn't just like the milk from this one country or the breed of camel from this one country. It was the camel itself in 2 different environments had the same effect. So that was what was the confirming thing that I needed to do to kind of go public and help drive this forward.
But just for the viewers at home, you do they really need to read the book, because you do talk a little bit in the book about how there's a certain amount that's the right amount, and too much is not a good thing. This is not a drown in camel milk sort of thing, correct?
Well, I would say you should bathe in it like Cleopatra if you get the chance, because it's excellent for skin. But as far as drowning in it, no. So no, I do answer all the questions because I know what people want, because I hear from hundreds and hundreds of people all the time. So I wrote the story, and there's incredible people in it, incredible photos in it. So I'd love people to enjoy that. But in the back is a user's guide, and so it's got where do I get it? A complete global source list of where to order. It has all the health conditions that it helps for. I mean, there are more, but I included the basics, which is autism, diabetes type 1 and 2, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, between rounds of chemotherapy, food allergies, gut disorders. There's all kinds of things that it works for. So I do have a chart in the back on how much suggested serving amounts are for each disorder. And then also ways to use it. How do I thaw it out? Like, just for fun here, I'm thawing out my camel milk right now. So you can just take a frozen bottle and set it in cool water to kind of chill. And then one of the readers in another country said, hey, I read your book and then I saw the actual camel milk you described. So I was glad that my description of this camel milk actually rang true when she saw it in the store. So you can get it all kinds of places now. You can get it on the internet, you can get it everywhere. But I have lists in the back, so it's easy. Like, I've got everything in Camel Crazy that you pretty much want to know about this topic.
Okay. How does it taste, Christina?
That's the number one question, and the number one answer is, after people drink it, is, oh, it just tastes like milk.
Okay. It's a little creamier, though, I think, isn't it? Or is that just me?
Well, it's all kind of different. So I just showed you the raw, fresh milk, from the camel. Mm-hmm. You can get it. And that is like, to me, when you get just like a nice clean batch that's so perfect, and it's just like that, it just tastes like any milk, basically. Only I feel that it's a little more similar to cow than goat in taste. But then if you get powder, or other kinds, it tastes a little bit different. If you get from different farms, it can taste different. I say it's kind of like a fine cheese. You know how they differ from each other? They're all cheese, sure, but some taste a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So where all can we get the book?
Well, the book is available anywhere you can get books. So, of course, Barnes & Noble, any other bookstore, independent bookstores, which I love. Independent bookstores have been great at featuring it. And go to any store, either they will have it or they can order it for you. Also, Amazon.com in any country where it operates can get it to you. Let's see, if you want a signed copy, write to me and I can send you a book plate or a signed copy. And then, of course, for our international buyers, it's bookdepository.com. But if you go on my website, ChristinaAdamsAuthor.com, all the places, you just have to push a button, it'll tell you where your independent bookstore is, or your Amazon, or whatever you want to do. So
wonderful. We highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. And also your first book, A Real Boy. Read them.
Absolutely. If
you haven't read that, you can read the two of these books. They go together and document Christina's journey.
Amazing, amazing.
So
we want to take a little bit of a break, but then if you still have time, we'd like to come back. There was a story that you brought to our attention yesterday that we'd like to have you talk to our viewers about. Do you have time?
Yes, I do.
Okay. We'll
be back. We're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.